Tom Marshall here. Welcome to Undermine Season 4, Episode 16. I'll be your tour guide, your Phish tour guide, as we continue to set the flux capacitor for a total of 25 stops along Phish 1.0 history. Yes, the time known colloquially as the 1990s. We are counting down or up, depending on your view, to Fall 97, the tour when Phish destroyed America. We'll be discussing every Fall 97 show on its anniversary, and in the meantime, you can catch our new Undermine episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We're glad to have you on this ride with us, and we hope that you play along at home by listening to these Phish shows alongside the corresponding episode. We will always tweet the show date a couple days in advance if you want to beat the spoilers here, or even just read the set list. Follow us on Twitter or Instagram to get the scoop. As you can see, if you're watching this on YouTube, my co-host for today is fellow Undermine executive producer and New York Times best-selling author, Benji Eisen. Hi, Benji.
Hi, Tom. I don't know why I said it like that.
I think because Tom.
Yes, Tom. And for those who aren't watching on YouTube, Tom has a major shirt on. So, today, Tom, we are talking about December 14th, 1995, Broome County Arena, Binghamton, New York. Another one of those shows. You know, I'm not one of these dates guy where if you give me a date, I'll have to be like, what city was that? But 12/14/95, I immediately know it's Binghamton, New York. And, you know, I'll scratch my head if you ask me what I just had for lunch over here right now. But mention December 14th, 1995, I can tell you where I parked. I can tell you how I almost lost my ticket in the snow on the way in. And I even remember where I was standing inside the venue on the GA floor. It was a massive night in many ways. It was in the middle of a blizzard. And when I say blizzard, it also physically, I mean literally a blizzard, but also there was that blizzard that is Fall 95 Phish, specifically December. It's one of all of our favorite months of Phish, and we are going to be discussing that today with another friend of ours who is there. But first, Tom, we got to take care of some business. If you've been enjoying, and by you, I mean everyone listening, if you've been enjoying this season of Undermine, then please consider subscribing to Osiris Premium on Apple. You'll get ad-free podcasts, bonus episodes, and apparently more. Okay, Tom, tell us about our guest today.
All right, we're excited to have David Steinberg on today. David is also known by the letters zzyzx, and he took zzyzx as the nickname of his Phish persona, which involves glitter, a hat, and cape, and a clipboard and a pen. Zzyzx is actually the weird name of a road in a California desert that David passes on his way from Seattle to virtually every Phish show he attends. David has been seeing Phish since 10/28/89 and was awarded the title The Timer by the band because he was infamous for timing every song with a stopwatch and taking notes on his clipboard. He would stand in the front row and he was disconcerting to Trey and the band. And at one point he was even banned from the front row, but we're not going to get into that, I don't think, tonight. I did interview him on Under the Scales. But anyway, he's been a key member of the Phish community for as long as there's been a Phish community, contributing and compiling super valuable statistics about the shows and songs you can find on his on the Phish stats page. He's got, just Google Phish stats. And he volunteers his time as an important member on the board of the Mockingbird Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, the man beneath the cape, Mr. David Steinberg. Hi, zzyzx or zzyzx. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine.
Great to see you.
Seattle.
Yeah, greetings from Seattle. Yes, another West Coaster. Benji's on the West Coast, and I'm holding up I'm balancing the map over here in New Jersey. David, before we get started, I've known you for a long time, and I don't think I've ever asked you this before. Do you still bring the clipboard and the stopwatch to shows? I know you wear the cape.
Yes, I try to. Sorry, a cat in the way. Yeah. I do, except for in Vegas last year when security decided that a clipboard was a massive security concern and took it away from my possession, which did not make me particularly happy. And I ranted at them on Twitter nonstop for like a week.
And tell the good outcome of that.
Okay, so the 30th, I'm sitting at my seat and I get a message from Jason. I wasn't sure if I should mention his name, but I don't see why not. Asking me, we have a friend in common, so he got my number and he asked me if I was inside. He needed to talk to me. And
this
so
is
I thought
Phish manager. Manager. Yep.
I thought it was going to be a look, dude. We get that you take your clipboard away. Stop complaining so much. Like, yes, I'm inside. Like, can you meet me at the floor? So I walked down to the railing because I was in the 100 level, and he hands me. First thought they got my old clipboard, but no, he hands me a new clipboard, and I'm like, "Oh, cool, that's sweet." And I'm about to walk in, they said, "No, turn it over." And there's a really sweet message on the back and signed by all 4 band members.
You know, everyone recognizes you, David, especially the band. I mentioned about you being banned from the front row at one point, or maybe even banned from Phish shows briefly. But
never from shows, just the front row.
Okay. And the band realized their mistake because you are a contributor, you're not a taker. And also, I do want to say, before we get started, I have to say that David, like my esteemed co-host Benji, who wrote Deal about Bill Kreutzmann, is also a famous author. Well, at least famous in the Phish scene, right? Having written a book all about Phish summer 94 tour. Yes. And it's called This Has All Been Wonderful, a tour memoir from summer 1994. Check it out. David, I know we're catching you for a 1995 show, but I wanted to mention your book since you said that this is the year Phish became Phish, but then you also said it about this 95 show. So maybe Phish becomes Phish every year.
Well, this 95 show, to some degree, feels more like they were going from like starting around 91-ish through 95. They were kind of progressing down a certain way.
Or up.
Well, yeah, they were going down a path. And yes, it was getting better every year.
Yeah, it really was.
And some 95s go up there. Starting fall 94, summer 95, they all started doing these long, extended space type jams. But this show feels to some degree more like a 94 kind of show. The jams are out there, but they're not way out there for 50 minutes. And they go in and out of songs a lot. And one thing I was thinking, since this is the path to summer 97, the theme of this season, is that 95 does to some degree feel like maybe they pushed that as far as they could, and now what?
That's go on.
No, go on.
I was just gonna say that's a really interesting revelation, because as you just said, we're kind of painting the scene for fall 97 by revisiting these shows, and our previous episode focused on Hershey, PA from December 1st. So just the fact that, from our list, that 2 out of 25 comes from this month says something. And Live Phish, the Live Phish subscription service, I think that they have 4 from this month as well. So, do you agree, David, about the legend of December 95? Why is it such a revered month of Phish? What makes it so great? Well, 93, 94 are my favorite years of Phish. You could argue that 95 is the best year of Phish, in that every aspect of the band is there, and it's there really strong. Trey is still at his peak machine gun style playing. They're nailing the compositions. They have opened their set list up a lot. They still have the humor, as even this show demonstrates in parts. But they also have started doing the jams. Like any aspect you'd want from Phish is there. And December 95 really, I've only got to see 2 shows this month, and they both were great. One of them may be been the best show I've ever seen. So
this month you only saw one other. What other shows did you attend this whole tour?
I saw the weird Northwest run that started off. I just moved to Seattle. Unfortunately, I'm glad I moved to Seattle, but I just moved to Seattle at a bad time for Phish, in that they were playing all these great shows, and I was just starting on a new career, so I couldn't fly everywhere the way I was driving everywhere in '94.
Right.
So I got to see the Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, Spokane, Missoula shows in October, which, if we're saying December '95 is a peak month, if we're got to be honest, October '95 was a Phish month, but not a peak Phish month. Gotcha. The shows weren't bad, but they weren't on this level.
Gotcha. This was so, you know, all the people who watch Phish nowadays are so used to the internet and stuff, but this was just after rec.music.phish formed and Benji was doing the digest, but this was still long before Twitter updates gave us the set list in real time. And how did you keep up on the Phish tour, since you now were kind of on the left coast and Phish was usually playing over on the right?
I mean, I'd read the set list and you would occasionally get tapes. I mean, there were tape trees and things like that. But to be honest, I had not actually heard 12-14-95 until 2001. When we released it as a Live Phish. So Live Phish 01, actually, the very first one.
Yeah, it was the very first Live Phish release, which also says something about this show. And in my memory, there was an epic snowstorm on the way in. I remember driving down the thruway, which I thought we were scared that they were going to close it off. And I remember I just remember it being a little hairy on the way in. And by the time that I got there to the venue, it was just enough time for us to park the car and run inside and take up our positions. Do you remember in your show-going experience from that night, was there any type of scene present at the show? What
I was not at the show.
Oh, you weren't at the show?
No.
Here we continue then with more guests. So, this is
I told you guys
the recurring theme on Undermine. I will tell you that there was a snowstorm on the way in.
Benji and I have through, and this is exactly the same thing, through sometimes misunderstanding or a tiny bit of miscommunication, we've been catching people that have seen a show directly before or directly after, but the show we're talking about that Benji and I are going on about and assuming that our guest has seen, that's not the case. So again,
unfortunately, I cannot give firsthand experience. However, this show, I'll tell a little story that I first heard it in 2001 when it got released. And it was because it got released in September 2001. This literally was the first bit of material I listened to when I finally turned off the 9/11 coverage and finally said, no, I can't do this anymore. I need something happier.
Wow.
And so it ended up being a very important, I listened to this nonstop for a week afterwards. So.
Well, that's great, and that gives us our next segue, which is, since you weren't there in person, it leaves us to talk about what really matters, and that's the music. It really, stands the test of time. Because who cares about the snowstorm on the way in, or that it was a venue in Binghamton, New York. It's the music that stands the test of time, and there's a lot about it to talk about. We're going to give all the listeners at home the special gift of a commercial break. And when we come back, we'll get to the other side of that intentional cliffhanger.
Have you ever wondered what it would feel like if your investments reflected what matters most to you? At Green Future Wealth Management, the advisors specialize in helping clients manifest their values in their financial lives. Green Future Wealth Management was founded by certified financial planner practitioner and longtime fan Nick Cantrell, named by Forbes as one of the top next-gen wealth advisors in the country. Whether you are just getting started or have complex investing and financial planning needs, visit them on the web at greenfuturewealth.com. You can sign up for the email list or take the Investing Values quiz. When you feel ready, schedule a free virtual consultation. In appreciation for the amazing Phish community and the incredible work being done by fans across the country, Green Future Wealth Management will be donating 10% of asset management proceeds from new Osiris listener clients to Fans for Racial Equity. Just be sure to mention Osiris when booking your appointment. Create your green future. Securities offered through Cambridge Investment Research Inc., member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Inc. Cambridge and Green Future Wealth are not affiliated.
And we are back. Did your eyes feel heavy and your nose light? Yeah, me neither. We're here today with the special Undermine special guest, David Steinberg. David, let's talk music. The first set opened with a Susie Greenberg. Was that an unusual opener? And what first set highlights followed?
You know, it feels like it shouldn't be an unusual opener, but I looked it up, and that's actually the only time that Susie Greenberg opened in 1995 show. It closed a lot of first sets, but didn't really open any. So yes, it was an unusual opener.
Yeah, it's something we're used to seeing in the first set, but you're right, not right in the beginning.
You looked it up, I imagine, on your own Phish stats page. You know, from a statistician standpoint, does anything on the set list stand out to you from that angle of it?
Yes, this was the final keyboard army until Dick's 2015.
Wow.
So thank you. That was a fall 95 song, and then they abandoned it afterwards until they needed a K.
I don't know if you guys, so Acoustic Army, it has that alliteration. And then I thought it was Keyboard Cavalry.
Yeah, that's what I always called it at the time. But unfortunately, that didn't stick.
So the set list police agrees with Keyboard Army?
Yes, that is the quote official title.
I never rebel and just I have too many hand labeled cassettes with Keyboard Cavalry on them for me to go back and relabel.
I'm going to get back to first set highlights.
Yes.
What really stuck out to me, and I think it's one of these moments that really shows what makes Phish special, even in the world of jam bands, is the split open and melt. Because it's one of these things, if you somehow manage to get a recording of this tape and had Trey just cut out of it completely during the jam, which I actually would love to hear one day, even though I love what Trey's doing, don't get me wrong. But there's so much going on with Mike and Page and Fishman.
Yeah.
It's like they keep hitting the same space, but every single time it's slightly different.
There's that weird rest. There's that weird rest, right?
Yeah, but every single passage, it's like Fishman slightly varies his drum beat, or Mike changes his bass line.
Wow.
And then at the very end of it, this is the point, 95, they were just so in tune with each other. And that's the thing, they jam by listening to all four of them. They're all co-equals, and so they always are constantly listening. At the very end of this melt, it gets quieter and quieter. So they try to figure out just how little can we still play and still have it be split up in the melt. So first, there's like 3 or 4 bass lines and the do. And then there's like a little tiny bit of Page, and then Fishman just hits the snare drum, the kick drum 3 times, kick, do. And then there's nothing and a very quiet kick. And then there's nothing at all, except for like one Page fill in the middle of the phrase. And then suddenly, boom, back to the end. So they're all listening, even though there's nothing to hear.
And they've got impeccable rhythm and timing, or whatever it's called, so that they know where they are in the song, whether there's music, instruments happening or not. It's incredible.
And, you know, even though there was a tweezer in the show and a jammed out Haley's Comet, I remember after the show getting in the car with my friends, the split open and melt was what we talked about.
I believe that. I mean, it still has all the energy of the early period. That's why I was saying this is kind of where they may have hit a bit where they had to refigure for 97. It has all the energy, but also this unique spin. And also that Phish moment of, this is 95. Jerry just died. The band's playing much larger venues. People are like, do I want to see this other band? I don't know. And instead of trying to change their sound or try to do something very obvious crowd appeal, they play a little joke that only the 4 of them really are getting. And people who really know the song well, and they're, you know what, this is what we're going to do. If you like it, keep coming back. If you don't, we don't care. Well, I mean, I'm sure they care a little bit. Still, we're going to do what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And that's just defined their career in so many ways. It's one of the things I love about them.
And clearly people kept coming back for more because of that, which was amazing. Did you ever get a sense, and I don't know really how to quite define this, but you know, and I've never really been a set list student, but when Benji and I have been talking, and RJ and I have been talking with people about 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, and it seems like the highlight for those early 90s stuff always tends to be focused around mics. However, these days, and I'm talking current days, the 2000s, 3.0, 4.0, whatever we're in, it's often tweezer. And you just mentioned Split Open and Melt. Did the focus start switching to other songs away from mics right around now?
There were a few songs that Mike's was always one of them. And there were always the group people who always wanted the Harpo and didn't get it.
What were you chasing?
I was one of the people who was always looking for the Harpo and didn't get it.
Right. Like, well, I got some. I mean, I got a bunch, but it was always chasing.
Well, speaking of tweezer, how do you rank this tweezer compared to tweezers at the time?
It's kind of its own little world in that it doesn't have, it's not extended. It's not like a 45-minute, it's not going to be Tahoe length or anything.
Right.
But it does two things that I love. One is it's got that timbre right in the middle of it. And Timber, again, was a song that just came back in summer 95. It had been played once in the 90s before them at 12/30/92. Before then, it was a cover they did in the 80s, abandoned, and then brought back summer 95. And it was played really commonly on this tour, like more than it probably has been in the entire career. And they really had it down. And so another thing, if you're listening to that Timber, it's 6 minutes, and every single time they play it, they keep that same energy, they keep that same space, but it's different every single time. And it's amazing. But then that second tweezer, and I actually have the timings because this is who I am. If you're listening to it, it goes into like this little funk type jam, like a 95 foreshadowing. And then around 2:06 in, John just singles a faster drum beat. And by 2:08, immediately, all four band members have completely changed what they're doing. They're all just listening so well. And then they go to a completely different place and they're playing with that and they're all listening. At 3:08, I think is what I have it, at 3:06, Trey kind of does this little sound. It's like the audio equivalent. If you're watching a movie, they do like a screen wipe. Trey makes kind of what that would sound like. And the band takes as a hint. And again, all four of them immediately switch to something else just as fast, but a completely different space, all four members. And they have their connection at that point. They're like, it's like talking to twins and they're finishing each other's sentences. They could just drop like the slightest hints. And like one thing I was saying is it's kind of like if like some bands are playing baseball or football, they're doing more like a hockey kind of thing where it's more. This is like I was listening to this morning and I came up with that analogy. Like some bands, it's like, okay, here's Joe's solo, here's Sarah's solo. That's like baseball. Everyone gets like their turn.
Right.
There's like football, like that's like the Trey band would be like football, which is like you have a bunch of people who are supporting this and one or two stars who are using that support to do something. But with Phish, it's just flowing constantly. It's like,
yeah.
And you get a few slap shots.
Yeah, but like the thing is, you can't ever tune out. You can't ever like say I'm not going to pay attention for a few minutes. I know where it's going because suddenly. Mike can pass the puck, and clear it out to the mid section. What is it? The center of blue line. I'm sorry, I'm not the best hockey person. I get cleared out.
The 2-line pass, but that's also why it's so important with Phish that more than most concerts. Why I think giving them your full attention and not talking through a jam and all that's so important because you miss 5 seconds, you could miss a play.
Yes, it just because it happens out of nowhere. Suddenly, like during a little function, and all of a sudden, like, wait, where did that come from? And all four band members, yet you can't just zoom in on one person. You have to pay attention to all four because they're all constantly doing things.
It sounds to me like you're describing much of what I love about this entire month of Phish. I mean, much about what I love about Phish overall, period, over their entire career. But December 95, they really were passing that puck back and forth, a lot. And They were just they were working as a team in a way that really solidified and they took it to the next level. And it was an undefeated month of Phish. Can you put the show in context for December 95 shows? I mean, how do you rank it? I know that, as we mentioned, it was the very first live Phish release. So obviously there's, it has that honor to it. But where do you put this with other December 95 shows?
I mean, I put it way up there. For me, this is close to a perfect show. I'm always a fan of those. Like Phish have like the structure and the chaos. I'm always a fan when they flip back and forth. They don't get too far into the structure. They don't jam at all. They don't get too far into the jams that there's no songs, but where they keep on transitioning back and forth. Where like the song flows into the jam and the jam flows into the next song. And they have this back and forth going. And this set's so good that like the timbre in the middle of the Haleys, or not, sorry, in the tweezer, and the Haleys coming out of it. And then the Haleys having that jam.
Benji, I was just going to say, Benji and David, so it took us to get to episode 16 before I found a show that I consider pretty much perfect. Like David said, I've loved all the other shows. And as you guys know about me, I don't really do a whole lot of re-listening. That's not my thing. This show is, you guys both described it, and it's perfect Phish. Second set is unbelievable. It's just an unbelievable second set. It's incredible, and what a great what a great guest to help us describe it, David. Thank you so much. I think if you look at your stopwatch, which you're good at, you probably see that we're about to hit our mark, which is 30 minutes. Benji, anything else before we close?
No, I mean, this has been great. It's been great. I hope that everybody listening at home has been doing what you and I have been doing, Tom, and what our guests have been doing as well, which is we have been re-listening. I know that it's tough for you, but you got. I mean, you have to admit you've listened to some really incredible Phish the past few weeks.
Unbelievable, yeah,
unbelievable. And I have too. As much as of a Phish fan as I define myself as being. I don't go back and listen to old Phish a lot because I've done that ad nauseum, and now I'm always want to hear what's new. But going back and listening and revisiting these shows it's been a joy. And this particular show, from a month that I just put behind, I put it behind glass in a museum or something, to hold it up. It's incredible. And this show was just, as both of you said, it was impeccable.
And cool that you were there, Benji.
In the middle of a snowstorm.
I listened to the show 4 times in the last 2 weeks leading up to this podcast.
Oh, thank you.
And my plan for tonight is to listen to it again because I miss it so much.
I think it's a good plan. I drive. I have this strange drive between domiciles that's exactly an hour, and I'm gonna queue up the second set right at the beginning of the drive. I'm so excited. And off to do that very soon. So why don't we? I think we
I will say right before I wrap up that what I was getting at with listening to these shows. I hope that the listeners, we tweet what show it's going to be that we're going to focus on a few days before the episode airs. And then, of course, Fall 97, there's no surprises. It's Fall 97, and where we're going to do every single show. So I encourage everyone, if you don't have the time to listen to the entire show, then maybe you can listen to some of the highlights that we talked about. But the hope is that maybe you listen to that in advance so that when we talk about it, you know exactly what we're talking about, and we can kind of just add some color commentary to the play-by-play. Yep.
And David, really fun to have you on, and it's always fun to poke a little fun at you on Twitter. I love doing it, and I always get a intelligent response, and so I'm going to keep doing it. Thank you to my co-host, Benji Eisen, and our fellow executive producers, RJB and Matt Dwyer. And thank you to everyone out there in podcast land. If you like us, come back for more. Remember to review and subscribe wherever you listen or watch. We'll see you in a few days. And until then, blaze onward.
Osiris.